Queen Elizabeth I wasn't merely a monarch. She was an illusion brought to life. A self-proclaimed virgin queen, she wore jeweled gowns like armor and ruled not just with intellect, but with iron discipline. History remembers her as the dazzling force behind England's rise, the woman who crushed the Spanish Armada and secured the Protestant crown. But behind the grandeur, beneath the powdered pearls and painted smiles, was someone far more fragile, a woman consumed by fear, by pride, and by the weight of legend. She was obsessed with how the world saw her. Cleanliness in her court wasn't about health, it was about spectacle. She feared water, believed it could weaken her body and age her prematurely. To her, the body wasn't mortal. It was a sacred emblem of eternal youth, one that had to remain untouched by time, soap, or truth. In this story, we explore 5 of the most bizarre and unsettling rituals Queen Elizabeth followed to stay clean. And the final one will leave you stunned. Elizabeth had a royal addiction: sugar. In the 16th century, sugar was an exotic treasure, rare and expensive, reserved for kings and queens. Most people might never taste it in their lifetime. But for Elizabeth, it was a symbol of empire. Her tables overflowed with candied violets, glazed fruits, marzipan confections, and syrup-drenched delights. Sugar wasn't just her pleasure, it was her weapon, a declaration that England was rich, powerful, and thriving. But this sweetness came at a devastating cost. Dental care in her era was primitive, cruel. While the masses used twigs, rags, or ash, the queen had her own creation, a homemade toothpaste made from sugar and herbs. Yes, sugar, the very poison rotting her teeth. She also used gritty powders that scraped away enamel, leaving her smile ruined. By the 1590s, her teeth were blackened, broken, or gone entirely. Her breath was said to make courtiers recoil. Her words were hard to understand, distorted by the rot in her mouth. Still, she refused to have teeth pulled, terrified of pain. One courtier even offered to have his own tooth extracted in front of her, just to prove it wouldn't kill her. Imagine the agony, the screaming, just to move her. But the most disturbing twist, her courtiers copied her decay. Noble women painted their teeth black with soot to mirror the queen. In her world, even rot became fashionable. To have a ruined smile was to possess wealth. Decay was rebranded as beauty, all in honor of the crown. You've likely heard the infamous quote, "I bathe once a month, whether I need it or not." Some claim Elizabeth said it, others say it's a myth. Either way, it reveals just how strange the concept of hygiene was in her time. Water was feared. People believed it carried invisible poisons, miasma, blamed for plagues and death. To bathe was not just unnecessary, it was dangerous. So Elizabeth avoided water. Instead, she changed her linen undergarments multiple times a day, trusting soft cloth to pull dirt and toxins from her skin. Her handmaids dabbed her with rosewater vinegar and herbs, not to cleanse but to mask. These were rituals of illusion, not sanitation. To bathe meant to expose her body to reveal imperfection. And for Elizabeth, a queen's flesh had to remain above time, untouchable, divine. Why didn't she just take a real bath? Because bathing required ceremony. Her palaces had no plumbing. Preparing a bath meant hauling heavy tubs, heating dozens of buckets, and summoning attendants to stir and pour. It wasn't hygiene, it was a royal event, a luxury performed rarely, if ever. Yet she was still called clean. Her gowns were endless velvet, silk, perfumed. She wore gloves steeped in lavender and handkerchiefs drenched in rose oil. But it was all illusion. Her cleanliness lived on the surface in scent and silk, not in soap and water. Elizabeth didn't avoid bathing because she was idle. She avoided it because truth was too fragile. Water could wash off her paint. It could erase the myth. It could reveal that she was human, something she could never allow. Her face, iconic, eternal, wasn't real. Pale as marble, smooth as porcelain, and cold as legend. But beneath it, damage. Her beloved Venetian ceruse, a mixture of white lead and vinegar, created the perfect ghostly look. But it was toxic. It scarred her, blistered her, peeled her skin from bone. And the more it destroyed her, the more she layered it on. For her lips, she used mercury-based pigments. Mercury, a deadly metal that eroded memory, mood, and muscle. As her mind clouded and her hands trembled, the queen painted on, never knowing she was slowly killing herself. But the mask mattered more, because her face wasn't just hers, it was England's. Her portraits weren't honest. They were idealized, painted from face patterns that never aged. She refused to be seen in natural light. Even shadows were chosen carefully. By her final years, her face was so fragile that people whispered if touched, the paint would crack and fall. Mirrors were banned. A servant's sole duty was to powder her shoulders in private so no one, not even Elizabeth, would have to face the truth. She had become a prisoner of her own perfection. To understand her cleanliness, we must understand her greatest fear, losing control. Every drop of perfume, every silk glove, every ritual was an act of resistance against mortality. In her world, bathing wasn't about hygiene. It was about exposure, physical and symbolic. She had seen how her mother, Anne Boleyn, was destroyed by gossip and vulnerability. Elizabeth swore never to let herself be seen, truly seen. So she created a new kind of purity built on fragrance and theater. Her rooms were filled with lavender oil, rosemary vinegar tinctures. She dabbed scent behind her ears, carried perfumed handkerchiefs, and wore pomanders, ornate balls filled with herbs to ward off stench. These were not hygiene tools. They were talismans. She wanted to exist above odor, above rot, above humanity. Her gloves were scented. Her wigs powdered, her gowns stiffened and layered to trap smell and hide skin. Real hair, rarely washed, was treated with egg whites and sugar water, then powdered. When baldness came from poison and time, she turned to auburn wigs. But beneath them, her body was failing. Her skin blistered, her face scarred. Rumors whispered of wounds too gruesome to show. And still she painted. Still she powdered. She even banished mirrors so the illusion could survive. Every bath she skipped, every drop of rose water was an act of denial, a rejection of time's power. Washing the body meant accepting it was real. Dying. And Elizabeth had spent her life convincing the world she was eternal. In her last years, she carried a scented walking stick. When courtiers with rank but foul breath passed too close, she would raise it to her nose, not just to shield herself, but to remind them, I am the queen. I do not belong to your world. Her flesh had become the crown itself. It had to remain untarnished, even if the truth rotted beneath it. To Elizabeth, cleanliness wasn't about purity, it was about distance. Her palaces sparkled with gold velvet music. But behind that beauty, no plumbing, no toilets, no sinks. Her private commode was a wooden throne, a cushion concealing a ceramic pot. Waste was removed not by a servant, but by the groom of the stool, a trusted noble who knew her secrets and shared her whispers. Power in Tudor. England smelled like filth. The halls were lined with chamber pots and bowls. Waste was dumped in pits or thrown into moats. Night soilmen hauled excrement through narrow stairways by torchlight. The stench clung to the walls, to the clothes, to the air itself. Herbs were burned, flowers scattered, straw laid down. But it wasn't enough. Even the queen couldn't escape the rot. She moved her court from palace to palace, not just for strategy, but to flee the mounting stench. This was the true royal life, a kingdom of pearls and perfume resting on a swamp of waste. Elizabeth ruled not in spite of it, but through it. Her power depended on illusion, performance, and control. Her hygiene rituals were not laziness. They were mastery. Every powdered wig, every scented glove, every skipped bath was a silent message. I am not like you. I am legend. In a world where one rumor could unravel a reign, she made herself untouchable. She became myth. Elizabeth I was not clean in the way we understand it, but she was immaculate by design. Her body may have been falling apart, but her image stood untouched. She didn't just survive. She perfected the art of being seen without ever being known. And in the end, her true purity wasn't on her skin. It was in the legend she became. And in the end, Queen Elizabeth I didn't just leave behind a throne or an empire. She left behind a warning. That power, true power, is not always about strength or truth, but about perception, about how tightly one can control the story the world believes. She ruled not with naked honesty, but with myth masks and performance. She painted her face not to deceive, but to survive. To lead in a world that punished female weakness, she chose perfection over pain, illusion over intimacy, and image over identity. But at what cost? Her body crumbled beneath the mask. Her smile decayed, her skin blistered, her mind dimmed. And yet she never let the world see her break. Because in her world, to be human was to be vulnerable. And to be vulnerable was to lose everything. So here's the lesson we carry forward. You can shape how the world sees you. You can build an image, a reputation, even a legend. But if you wear the mask too long, you might forget what's beneath it. If you chase perfection, you may lose yourself in the performance. And if you build a life only to be admired, you may never truly be known. Queen Elizabeth I mastered the art of being unforgettable. But in doing so, she became untouchable even to herself. So ask yourself, in a world full of mirrors and masks, are you protecting your power or hiding your truth?